And actually, I know I'll come over
You found a bunch of stuff. I have a game in there because I know people are
All right, the meeting will come to order. The second most important announcement to make is that we're having our class first and then the devotional at the end. So keep that in mind. Don't get up and leave after I'm finished, at least for this session anyway. And the first most important announcement to make is it's cold out there. Man. And this is November. It's going to be interesting. We are in Proverbs chapter 27 this evening. Proverbs chapter 27, and since I don't know exactly what's going to be happening in about 40, 45 minutes, let's have a prayer now. Dear Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening. We pray your blessings on our Bible study. Thank you for the word of truth that you've given us. Help us, Lord, to have our hearts open to receive the teaching that you have for us in these verses. Help us to live wisely in order to honor you. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to talk about verses 2 and 4 in the devotional, so we'll work around those as we start. Verse 1 of chapter 27 says, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth." That reminds us of the passage in James that says pretty much the same thing. Very true. It's humbling to think about, to know that kind of thing happens, but that's the nature of the world in which we live. Verse 3, "A stone is heavy and the sand weighty, but the provocation of a fool is heavier than both of them." You know, the non-physical things that we endure really weigh us down. As difficult as physical things are, the emotional and spiritual weights that we carry are really heavy. They stay with us. Verse 5, "Better is open rebuke than love that is concealed." That's something to think about. Better to be out about it if you need rebuke than love that is concealed. What good does that do? You know, what's the benefit of that? 6, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. Someone who's a friend might say some things that are hard to hear, but you know they love you. But an enemy who's all hugs and kisses, but you know there's nothing there beneath it, and that is in fact deceitful. That's no fun. Verse 7, a sated man loathes honey, but to a famished man, any bitter thing is sweet. There's a lesson here that goes beyond dietary laws. Someone that's got enough and too much doesn't care about anything else. But if you're really hungry, even something bitter is sweet to the taste. It's good to be hungry. It's good to realize your need. Insightful observation there. Like a bird that wanders from her nest, so is a man who wanders from his home. I don't think that's probably talking about just kind of taking off one day and strolling down to Dollar General, okay? I think that's something a bit more in the line of immorality that he's talking about there. It's not good. It's inappropriate. Bird belongs in his nest, man belongs in his home. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, so a man's counsel is sweet to his friend. We appreciate words of advice, words of encouragement, words of counsel, just like we like things that smell good. Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend. And do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. Interesting that's one of the very few proverbs that has 3 lines to it. Don't turn against a friend. Don't even turn against your father's friend, because they have had a relationship for years, and that's important. My dad had some Army buddies from World War II that he kept up with by Christmas cards primarily. And after he died, we kept sending Christmas cards to them. And finally, the last one of his buddies passed, but his wife was still living. So we sent her a card every Christmas. It was just good, to maintain that relationship over the years. Don't go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Oh. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother far away. You got that figured out? Don't ignore, don't pass up comfort that you can get nearby to try to make it to your brother who's far away. Don't have a singleness of focus that you ignore what you have around. I mean, I would think it's fine to go to your brother's house, but not at the expense of someone who is nearby. And I would think for sure not go to your brother's house if you hadn't been there in a few years. That's
Just when you want something.
yeah. Better to go to a neighbor, to someone you have a relationship with. That was good for him. Be wise, my son, and make my heart glad, that I may reply to him who reproaches me. how your children live is important. And he begs his son to give him joy in his life, to make his heart glad, so that, if somebody says, well, you haven't done very much, you haven't lived well, I can say, well, look at my son. See what he's doing. Verse 12, a prudent man sees evil and hides himself. The naive proceed and pay the penalty. So be wise, be alert, be on the lookout for things that might be harmful. Don't leave yourself open and vulnerable to that. The naive person just, saunters along and pays the price for that. Take his garment when he becomes surety for a stranger, and for an adulterous woman hold him in pledge. We've talked about the garment and the surety, the co-signing a loan. For an adulterous woman hold him in pledge. That means grab him and don't let him go. Don't let him get into that kind of situation. Sometimes other people don't have the greatest judgment in the world, and we have to interpose and do what's best for them, even when they're not thinking straight themselves. Oh, I love verse 14. He who blesses his friend with a loud voice early in the morning, it will be reckoned a curse to him. Timing is everything. It's great to greet your friend, but not with a loud voice early in the morning. That would not be welcome. That would be taken as a negative thing. So you don't want that. So wait till later, when your friend will more likely be up, and do so gently. Timing. 15, a constant dripping on a rainy day of steady rain and a contentious woman are alike. He who would restrain her restrains the wind and grasps oil with his right hand. Glenn's greeting. You want to talk about that? Not at the well. Anyway, I think we're pretty clear on that. Just wait till chapter 31. Ladies, you'll have your day. Pardon? We'll see if we get to that sometime this year or next. 17 is a good one. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That's true. We can't do this on our own. We don't have all that we need. We can help each other. We play off each other. We teach each other. Oh, I didn't think of that. Thanks. Another set of eyes notices things and sees things that you need to realize. And so these kinds of relationships, iron sharpening iron, is a good thing. That can even happen in a marriage relationship, 18. He who tends the fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who cares for his master will be honored. The fruit of your labors. You reap what you sow. Take care of the fig tree. Guess what? You'll have figs. Care for your master will honor you. Verse 19 is deep, pardon the expression. As in water, face reflects face, So the heart of man reflects man. So you look into a pool of water, you see your face. You look at the heart of a man and you see what he's really about, what he's really like. Verse 20. Sheol and Abaddon are never satisfied, nor are the eyes of man ever satisfied. Sheol and Abaddon, the place of death. There will never come a time until the Lord comes back that Sheol and Abaddon will say, "Oh, we've got enough. No more death." No, there will always be more. There will always be death. Sometimes there are more deaths than others, as in war and famine and so forth. Never satisfied. Nor are the eyes of man ever satisfied. That's convicting. We always want more. Got to watch that. Got to guard for that. The crucible is for silver, and the furnace for gold, and each person is tested by the praise accorded to him. I think you understand. The crucible to burn. It's a hot cup, burns off the impurities. Each is tested by the praise accorded to him. So what do you do with praise? What do you do with compliments? Do you become big-headed, swell-headed? I'm listening to a biography of Harry Truman. That's the term they used to describe some people, who get too big for the britches or swell-headed. Each is tested by the praise accorded to him. What do you do with that? Thank you. Be humble. Go on about your business. Though you pound a fool in a mortar with a pestle along with crushed grain, yet his foolishness will not depart from him. You can't beat it out of him. He's stubborn. He's resistant. He's going to be foolish. So often is the case. Know well the condition of your flocks and pay attention to your herds, for riches are not forever, nor is a crown endure to all generations. Can't take it for granted. You can't assume, everything's all right. You've got to be responsible. You've got to be a good steward of your material possessions, your goods, because they're not going to last forever. If you don't care for them, if you're not stewarding them well, liable to run out. Those who wear a crown might think that, they're always going to be in power, but time and tide wait for no man. Crown does not endure to all generations. Verse 25, when the grass disappears, the new growth is seen, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered in. The lambs will be for your clothing, and the goats will bring the price of the field, and there will be goat's milk enough for your food, for the food of your household, and sustenance for your maidens. So what do you think about that? What's the message of that? The Lord provides in due time. What does Genesis say? Seed time and harvest shall not fail to come around. Do your job. Again, be responsible for what is yours to care for. And God's world will provide for what you need. Well, I'll pause here before we plunge on into 28 so we can get to chapter 31 quicker. And see if anybody has any thoughts about chapter 27. Everybody's happy, okay. Chapter 28. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Keep your act together, keep your nose clean, you don't have to be afraid. The wicked are afraid, sensitive, fearful. Somebody's going to be after them. Somebody's going to catch them. Even when nobody is after them, they're going to be looking over their shoulder, worried about who might be there. But the righteous don't have that concern. They can just strike forward and keep going. Verse 2. By the transgression of a land, many are its princes, but by a man of understanding and knowledge, so it endures. Someone have a translation that's a little different from that? There are countries that seem always to be in turmoil. You know, we think about the military takeovers in South American countries and so forth. They just, because of problems in the country, there's just one leader after another, just comes and goes. But when you have someone in charge who has understanding and knowledge, there can be stability, and the country will endure.
This one is the New King James, and it says, but by a man of understanding and knowledge, right will be prolonged.
Okay, right will be prolonged. So justice prevails when you got people in leadership who are aware of that and follow the truth and the standard. A poor man who oppresses the lowly is like driving rain which leaves no food. Interesting observation. You'd think a poor man would be concerned about making some money, but there are those who oppress, who would appear to be lowly in relationship to them, in relation to them, but they are like a driving rain which leaves no food. There's nothing good that comes from that. You know, it takes away even the food that they have. Those who forsake the law praise the wicked, but those who keep the law strive with them, fight back, counter them. You've got this circle over here. You know, people forsake the law. Well, they have no respect for what is right and true. They praise the wicked. But those who keep the law counter that. They're willing to do battle with them, to oppose them. So they strive with them. So we want to be people who keep the law and oppose those who are evil. Kind of a similar idea in verse 5. Evil men do not understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand all things. We've got to have a standard. You know, we've got to have an understanding of right and wrong. That it's not something that just changes from generation to generation or even from year to year. But you've got to have truth as the basis. Otherwise, we're just all over the place. And people live in danger, and you never know what's going to happen. But, you know, if we have a generation who seeks the Lord and they understand things, then it's more likely that righteousness is going to prevail. And that gives us the kind of life that we want to have. Verse 6, better is the poor who walks in his integrity than he who is crooked, though he be rich. So what's more important? Wealth or integrity? It's you can live with yourself when you have integrity. Verse 7, he who keeps the law is a discerning son, but he who is a companion of gluttons humiliates his father. A lot of times, young men don't realize that what they do impacts their parents, but it does. It pains them greatly. He who increases his wealth by interest and usury gathers it for him who is gracious to the poor. Someone who tries to gain at the expense of others, it's going to fall through his fingers and wind up those who will do good with it, who will be gracious to the poor. He who turns away his ear from listening to the law, even his prayer is an abomination. There's a right way to live, and that includes listening to the law, listening to God's word, and consistent with that is having a prayer life that reaches God. But if your life is an abomination, turning away from the law, your prayers are an abomination. He who leads the upright astray in an evil way will himself fall into his own pit, but the blameless will inherit good. Influence. What's your influence? Lead the upright astray, you yourself will encounter disaster, but the blameless will receive good. The rich man is wise in his own eyes, but the poor who has understanding sees through him. Is that what other translations says? Sees through him? I like that. Understands and searches him. Okay. Yeah. Rich man is wise in his own thinking, but even a poor man sees reality and understands what's going on. When the righteous triumph, there is great glory, but when the wicked rise, men hide themselves. That's why we need good leaders. That's why we need to have people who lead us well. It's not a way to live to have to hide yourself, conceal yourself. He who conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will find compassion. How true. How blessed is the man who fears always, but he who hardens his heart will fall into calamity. I don't think he's talking about fear in the sense of abject terror, but he who fears authority, who fears the Lord, who has a proper, humble attitude. But someone who has hardened his heart into thinking only for himself, making his own rules, his own standards, is destined for trouble. Like a roaring lion and a rushing bear is a wicked ruler over a poor people. He's dangerous. He's going to do bad things to the people who are defenseless. A leader who is a great oppressor lacks understanding, but he who hates unjust gain will prolong his days. There's a thing that comes in a position of leadership, a position of power, potential power. It's possible to get to thinking that you can do no wrong, who thinks that it's all from him. That lacks understanding, and there's going to be trouble. But person who leads, who rules by justice, will prolong his days. A man who is laden with the guilt of human blood will be a fugitive until death. Let no one support him. Oh, how sad. We see such violence in our world today. It's so harmful, so destructive. He who walks blamelessly will be delivered, but he who is crooked will fall all at once, just when you least expect it, when you think you've got it made. Like the man in the parable of the bigger barns, it's going to fall. He who tills his land will have plenty of food, but he who follows empty pursuits will have poverty and plenty. Neat, good contrast there, pretty clear. Do you work? You'll have food. Mess around? You won't. You'll have poverty. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who makes haste to be rich will not go unpunished. It's a dangerous business to get into. To show partiality is not good, because for a piece of bread a man will transgress. Do right, be fair, do the right thing. Don't be so shameful that you will transgress the law for nothing, for a piece of bread. A man with an evil eye hastens after wealth and does not know that want will come upon him. An evil eye, it has a bad outlook on things, and he thinks the pursuit should be wealth. That's not the way to live. He rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than he who flatters with the tongue. I don't know how that is for you. It's hard for me to point out what someone is doing wrong, but it's true. A person who gives flattery, people see through that. He who robs his father or his mother and says, "It's not a transgression," is the companion of a man who destroys. It's a lot throughout Proverbs about how a son treats his parents, his father and mother, and to rob them and say, "Well, I didn't do anything wrong." It's the same thing as destruction. It goes right along with the destruction. An arrogant man stirs up strife, but he who trusts in the Lord will prosper. What do you want the effect of your life to be? Strife, conflict, trouble, or prosperity? That comes by trusting in the Lord. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but he who walks wisely will be delivered. Hearkening back to chapter 3, lean not on your own understanding. He who gives to the poor will never want, but he who shuts his eyes will have many curses. Be generous. When the wicked rise, men hide themselves, but when they perish, the righteous increase. Okay, guys. Talk about this, talk about something else, talk about the balls, something. Anything?
I read an article, but it was too long ago. This business man that made a good living for himself. He's out riding his bicycle. He was on this trail, and underneath this bridge lived a homeless man. He had a flat tire on his back. All the other people that were riding bicycles passed him by. The homeless man came up on the bridge, and all his belongings he had in a bag. He happened to have a tube to pick back that bag, a bicycle. He He offered the tube to the guy sort of refused it, the homeless man insisted. He also broke the tire down, put the tube on. I don't know what means of air, he had to air it back up, but he fixed his tire. And that time on this chapter,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes we tend to look down on somebody that we shouldn't, and they might have just what we need.
Yeah, that's true. Glenn was saying he read an article about a man riding his bike over a bridge and had a flat tire on his bike. And there were a bunch of other bicyclists who rode by and didn't help, kind of like Story of the Good Samaritan. But underneath the bridge, there was a homeless man who lived. And he saw him up there, and he had all his possessions, you know, in a backpack or whatever. And he happened to have a tube for a tire. And he offered to give it to the man. And, he said, no, I don't want to do that. But he insisted, and he put it on, fixed his bike back so he could keep on going. And it was a humbling experience to realize that someone that you might look down on could have the very thing that you need. That's a neat story. Don't judge by appearances. Be willing to be helped. We learned that many years ago. If you refuse help, you refuse that other person the opportunity to be a blessing. So it's good to accept help when you need it. Say thank you. Help somebody else when you have the opportunity. That's how the world should work. What else we got?
Anybody else supposed to speak up? This is supposed to be a true story.
All right.
And this gentleman lived in Defeating at this time. He always drove a Cadillac car. He was a farmer. He went to Nashville in his old beat up farm truck. In his big gold rock. He pulled up at the Cadillac dealership, salesman come out, asked him what could he help him with. He said, I'll let that car. Salesman said, okay, I'll be back in it. He turned around, walked back in. Gentleman, a farmer, could see through the window that there was sort of making fun of him. He got in his truck, drove back to Lebanon. At that time, Lebanon had a Cadillac dealer. Pulled into the parking lot, looked through, picked out a car he wanted. Salesman came out. Can I help you with, sir? He said, I'd like to have that car right there. He said, all right, let's come in here and see what we can work up. So the man says, sir, says, now how do you want to pay for this? Told me to have him build overalls, cash.
Yeah. Did y'all get that in the back? Yeah, it's a good story.
They told me that actually supposed to have happened.
I wouldn't be surprised.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yeah, then, Save Lot, and this lady put her groceries up on the counter, and they took them out and came to about $100. And, she searched her pocketbook, and she didn't have enough money to pay for them. She went to the car and still didn't. So, a guy that used to come to church here stepped forward and paid for her groceries.
That's a great story. Quality of mercy is not dead.
And he had attended church here for quite a while, but he doesn't come here anymore.
Well, sounds like he learned some good lessons, though. There's a spark there.
He still had a love and heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else?
And like one day I seen For the drive-through at Dairy Queen, having me have to pay for what I ordered. I go up to Linda, she said, "You're still being paid for." She said, "The people will pay you pay for yours." I happened to me twice over there. I like it. I joked with her as well. I said, "If I go to that," I said, "I will order more." But I didn't mean it.
Sure. Well, I've heard of toll booths, up north, they have toll roads and people pull up to the toll booth and the attendant says, "The guy in front of you paid yours, go ahead." That's a neat story. Well, let's pause for a few minutes and the kids will be joining us here right directly.